Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Junkin' with Junior. Starting to get more excited about this project each time. I know I keep saying it, but we've got a few more parts to get this truck back together. I can't wait to drive this thing. Gosh dang it, the excitement's getting the best of me. So, been making some good progress as you guys have been watching and following along. Thanks for all your support on the channel. And went ahead and bolted on the passenger side fender because it didn't get killed in the accident, but it's still, you know, I'm not using it, don't get me wrong, it's pretty messed up in the intended delete holes, you know, wonky, messed up, dented, so getting rid of that. But I had to have it because I needed to bolt it on back here so that I could line up the radiator core support, because it was really like sagging way back as we put all the weight of the radiator and fans on it, so nothing was going to line up properly to make our hoses, and I needed to have it there to make sure that we have clearance here for our fittings and, you know, make the hoses the correct length. So we got that out of the way, and what's left? Well, now we get to carry on with some hoses. Let me show you this exciting box that I got today. Good old Brown & Miller Racing Solutions is what we're going with on the radiator hose plumbing. -20AN, like I've said before. Big fittings. Man, they look so good. I love the bulk that they have. It's just a tight and right look, no hose clamps. So this is actually the crimp collar, and you slide it over the hose goes in there, basically squish it down, and there's your hose end. And typically your AN hoses are either going to be stainless steel braided, or you can get them with the black cloth / nylon stuff that they have on them now, and that's a really nice look, and it's really clean, and I like it a lot. But Brown & Miller has one other option that's going to work even better with this truck, so I went for it. This is actually like a monofilament braiding on the outside, so like glorified fishing string, I guess you could say. You can catch a whopper on this one. So instead of cloth, it's like some sort of a plastic, but it has a really nice sheen to it, and it matches all the other wire loom that's on the truck, very similar to that. So I just think it's a nice clean look that's going to add to everything just a little bit and help set it off clean and tight and right. So for example, this 20AN should go right up under here. Get your little angle and some light here on our water pump. Hang on. Need another hand here. Screw that down on there. And it's important when you're making hoses like this that the fittings, the hose ends, get screwed all the way down onto that bung, because if you, on smaller hoses it's not so bad, but on these bigger ones, if you just start on one thread or set it on top, well, good grief, you're half, 3/4 of a 1 inch off on your angle, so that kind of throws everything off. So you have to be really careful on that. Now this 90 degree was the one that I thought was going to work. We got plenty of clearance on the, you know, supercharger housing there. Thankfully, back when I put the supercharger on, there's those spacers way back up under there. Can't really get you enough angle in here, but we spaced up the supercharger so we have room for this kind of cool stuff now, and won't interfere with anything. So we've got that one there, and we can figure out all the angle of the dangles on this stuff, and I'm going to show you guys how we're going to crimp those hoses together as well. It has finally arrived. Our Griffin Radiator, which is made for an LS swap, so it's a dual pass radiator, both fittings on the passenger side with the steam port there, and we sent it directly to Delta PAG so that they could build their shroud for it and put on 2 of their 14-inch brushless electric fans, and it comes all pre-wired, got a killer relay set up on it here, the controller's right up on the top, and it's a pretty basic hookup as well. We got 2 big wires, red and black, directly to the battery, small red switch 12 volts, and blue is going to be the AC override switch that's going to get hooked into a trinary switch. But the radiator's not quite ready for the truck yet, because remember, we're going to do 20AN hoses that we put on the bungs on the neck thermostat housing and on the water pump. So we're actually going to have to cut these off, weld the -20 bungs on here. This one we can unscrew and put our 1/8 inch pipe to a number 4 for the steam hose. We also have to put another one right here for the 3/8 NPT temperature sending unit for the fans to turn on and off. Once that's done, we can shorten up these wires a little bit and tidy them up just so it's not so messy there. And over here On the driver's side of the truck, they just put a typical petcock in there, and what I actually did on my old radiator, I just unscrew that, put an adapter fitting in there, and I run a number 6 hose, because it never fails that any radiator I've ever seen that has a drain on it like that, when you open it up, it just splashes and goes everywhere. You can't put a bucket underneath it because the frame rail is there, the inner fender well and such. So I actually run a number 6 hose over here, and I just kind of let it lay in the fender well and, you know, tie wrap it up there so it's not flopping around. But if I ever need to, I can pull that drain hose out, stick it down in a bucket, take the cap out of it, and just let it fill the bucket up, drain out the radiator, and we're good to go. So we're going to see how this thing fits in the truck, and I'm going to make all my marks on there for where I need to put all the bungs so I can drill some holes, take it back to the shop, and weld all that stuff up. Okay, so we're down here at the shop, and we're going to get one of our radiator hoses, one of the ends crimped on it. So I'm only going to do one end so that I can take it back, mark it to length with the other one, and then I'll bring it back to work and crimp the other end on it. So I'm going to show you how these work. So we got our 20 AN Brown & Miller hose. I'm going to have an expander here because the fitting is too large to fit down in there now. The hose is just a really snug fit. So we screw this expander down in here, and it just stretches it out just a little bit. The collar is already on the hose. I slid it on. Now we slide the fitting down in, nice and easy. Slide our collar up like that. Now it's ready to go in the crimp machine. Now our crimp machine is already set. It's one thing with Brown & Miller, it's some pretty technical stuff. They send you all the dimensions that you need for whenever you crimp this to check the size and the machine setting sizes, so that it's all done to their specs and you know it's right and it's going to seal, not blow off, have any leakage or anything like that. Just like that. Put this piece on here. Okay. Now we're ready to hit the button. Double check it. It moved just a hair on me. Okay. Better safe than sorry. Okay, and like I said, as far as the machine settings go, so we're using the high temp polymer braided hose here, then we're using -20, so they give us the machine setting here of 495, and we come over here. Now they want the outside of this crimp to be 1.513 to 1.518. .513, 1.514, 1.514. So we are good there. There you go. That's how you do a successful Brown & Miller crimped on hose end right there. And it, you know, like a regular AN, you have the nuts that screw together, so they're kind of big and bulky. But this thing, it's just a really tight and right clean setup. So we'll put it on the truck, get it marked, cut it off, and repeat the process on the other end and on the upper hose. You know what it means when we got this kind of awesomeness on for a top radiator hose. And that thing turned out really nice and clean. I like it a lot. Also, I moved the fan controller from the engine side of the shroud here. I put it directly on top of the radiator. You know, yeah, you'll always see it there, but definitely easier to see and adjust initially when we're going through the setup process on this. But as you can see, everything is getting really close. Still waiting on the inner fender well so that we can finish up you know, some odds and ends wiring over here for the relays and get our battery mounted. Still got to make our ground cable for the frame from the battery, so a couple little things we still got to do. So we're not quite there yet, but a whole lot closer than we've been. And it's coming together and looking really clean. I'm quite happy with it so far. Just looking exactly the way I want it to. So keep getting a little bit closer every night. It's just one part here and one part there. With this pandemic stuff, it takes forever to get everything, but that's just how it is. So I'm learning a lot of patience through this deal, but it won't be as long as it has been. So let's get some coolant in this thing, make sure we don't have any little drips on any of our fittings or anything like that. And so we are going with the Prestone Antifreeze coolant. I like to buy the pre-mixed stuff that's you know, 50-50. It's already mixed with the distilled water, as they say. So we don't have to go to the store and add anything to it. It's the correct ratio right from the manufacturer. And it is the Dex Cool, the orange stuff, since that's what would have came in this engine to begin with. And you know, it's the modern right stuff to put in here. We're gonna get this thing all topped off and make sure we don't have any drips. All right, so we got our first couple gallons of coolant in there, and I think it's time for an important step in this little project. Been waiting on this one for a while. Now remember, I don't have the fans hooked up yet. They're wired up, but the battery's not in on the driver's side for me to be able to hook up the relay and set the fan speed and all that sort of stuff and on and off temperature. So we're just gonna let it run a little bit, circulate some coolant, then we can top it off, but we're not gonna get it to where it's smoking hot and hurt anything. So let's see what the old girl's got. It's alive again. Oh man, what a nice sound. I love hearing this truck again. Gosh dang it, I miss this thing. I can't wait to drive it again. Coming to life. All our Holley EFI is just like we had left it off. It's still kicking. Of course, we got our indicator, turn signal indicator lights are on because they're not grounded on this side, so we do have to, you know, hook that up when the battery's in there. But she's still got oil pressure. Everything looks good. Battery's not charging. I'll bet you it will when we hook it up though. All right, let's get out here and check this coolant. Oh yeah, she's a little bit lower. Not a lot, because it's mainly just circulating through the heater core. So we'll go ahead and top this thing off a couple of times and get her dialed in. Well, you know what that means. Remember when I said I put this handy drain hose on here just in case? Well, tonight's the just in case. Fired it up, letting it get a little bit of temperature, and I'll be dang if the brand new thermostat housing and thermostat hasn't started leaking on us. So just one of them things, have to pull it apart, get a new gasket for it, and put her back together and do it again. All right, it's sounding good. It's got some temperature now. According to the gauge inside, I did have an air pocket in it that had to get worked out. Actually took the top radiator hose off, held it up in the air, poured the coolant down in the top hose. It's an old trick so that you're filling it at the highest point, and then it kind of pushes its air out the steam hose and back into the radiator there. So that all seems to be good. Oh yeah, according to the tank on the radiator over here, it's definitely warm and circulating water. And it also appears that we got that little drip fixed on the thermostat housing down there as well. Turns out I had misread the instructions. I read them a couple times, but I was really confused because there's actually a spacer that you have to use. Even though I got the new thermostat that they said to get out of a 2013 Corvette, and Earl's actually gives you the thermostat part number on the instructions, but I misunderstood that when you do that on the older housing for the water pump, which this is a 06 truck style, they do send a little about a 1/4 inch spacer that you have to put in there. So maybe that was part of it. Blessing in disguise that it had a little drip in it, because I took it apart, regrouped, and now we don't have a leak, and the thermostat's opening like it should. So I'd say we got that figured out now. Finally, one of the last pieces to the puzzle has arrived. The inner fender for the driver's side, which is holding up all the progress, is here. Finally, auto metal direction. Here it is. pretty nice looking piece. Didn't get all beat up in shipping like they do sometimes, but these don't have to come on a freight truck on a pallet, so usually not a big deal. Couple of scuffs, no big whoop, because we're going to paint it anyways. So now that we got one of the last pieces, as you could say, gonna get this thing scuffed up, sanded down so that we can hit it with some paint. Gonna go with black on the tire side, and then on the inner fender side, engine side, is gonna be that Massey Ferguson gray that I love so much. So we're gonna get that painted, get it installed, then we can finish some battery cables, get our battery mounted with the tray in there and all that sort of stuff, and it's time to go for a test drive. Here we go. The truck is moving under its own power again. Man, it feels good. Look at that. You can get to see a little sunlight. Ooh, boy. Finally, making some real progress on this truck. And I know we still got a long ways to go because there's no front end on the truck, but I kind of like the look of the open hood, no fender situation. You can definitely see what's going on, and that engine looks really good. So does that radiator and fan setup. Everything's turning out really clean, just the way I wanted it to. But one other thing that we haven't really talked about yet is we're going to go ahead and paint this entire truck. So we're getting rid of the scattered and splattered white that's on it, and it's because we got all new sheet metal for the front, remember, the hood and fenders, so we're starting fresh there. So why not start fresh with the rest of the truck, and let's get some real paint on this thing. We're going to go back with the factory blue like GM had intended it, and I think it's going to look really good. I can't wait to see all that on it. Just nice and smooth and blue the way it should be. So that's going to do it for this one. We're just going to go on an easy little test drive, work out some bugs on this thing, make sure everything's working like it's supposed to, come back to the shop, check our fluid levels, all that little time consuming stuff. Make sure we don't forget anything so that when this thing does hit the road, it's ready to go. So hope y'all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching Junk Whip Jr., and we will see you next time.